We've got more board game news for you, including an update on the Dungeons and Dragons situation. So let's get right to it for the tabletop news of February 1st, 2023. We've learned that Asmodee is closing up shop on a company, Pearl Games, a Belgian-based company that they acquired back in 2014. This company was founded by the game designer Sebastian Duargin, who has made many games, including the very popular Black Angel. Now, it seems that they are closing up shop and letting people go, but currently the designer is in the works of discussing and hopefully getting the rights to his titles back in order to be able to publish them on their own as an independent company. This is obviously hopeful outcome, as we don't want to see any games sort of get locked behind any kind of legal fees and allowing them to be republished again. But also curious, is this going to be signs of Asmodee trying to lean and clean up all the games it acquired? We've seen so much of Asmodee buying and growing. Are we going to start seeing Asmodee trying to shrink and really cut away the things that aren't the constant AAA winners or series released every time, like pretty much what we've seen happen to Fantasy Flight? This is only one speculation. We'll have to see as we learn more, and whether they're going to get these titles or either maybe we'll just hold on to them for the sake of holding on to them. We will learn more as we approach March, when they actually officially close Pearl Games. There are plenty of Kickstarter horror stories out there. However, this one is definitely a unique twist, as we learned how it's not only the customers getting the short end of the stick. For the Kickstarter project for the game Alba from Inside the Box Games, there was an update recently simply titled "Pay Your Ex-Employees Peter." It seems that not only has he not been paying his employees fairly for months, but also did not change the passwords for them so they had access, and therefore took it into their own hands to post an update, let everyone know just what the hell was going on. This is definitely an interesting and clever use of when you have those leftover passwords before you leave, and I'm sure this has only made people angrier, as look, if you're not paying your employees, I doubt your product's being delivered on time, so that alone gets people angry. This is only going to make them annoyed that their game is being made on unfunded labor. I mean, I can hope that this will get some compensation delivered to the employees. I don't think so, or at least the pessimist in me doesn't think so. But at the very least, if we can keep this up and maybe make things a little bit wary for people who try to use Kickstarter and not actually pay the people who not only help them make it, but of course deliver the product to the people who fund it. If we make an example here and spread this and let people know about it, it'll be a good warning sign, and hopefully maybe remove at least some of the bad Kickstarters out there before they get the chance to get this bad. Now, two fun little card game stories, both involving series that end in Mon. First, the good news. In the card game Pokemon, there is a fun little debacle that happened a while back involving the Pokemon Kadabra. If you don't know, in the Pokemon series, there are many creatures that evolve into different stages, Kadabra being the middle stage of Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam. Now, in the first set of Pokemon, there were some Kadabra cards, however, they magically disappeared for most later sets. The reason behind this was back in 2000, there was a £60 million lawsuit filed by an illusionist named Uri Geller, who alleged that the Pokemon Kadabra was making use of his name, likeness, and his spoon-bending act. Because of this, we haven't seen Kadabra, and in most of the Pokemon card games, when you want to reach those higher forms, you need to play on the previous form, so Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise. Alakazam, however, was labeled as a basic, as if it didn't have any previous evolved form, so they could sort of bypass Kadabra altogether. However, in 2020, they announced that the lawsuit was being dropped, but it's only recently that we learned we're finally going to see Kadabra re-enter the card game. And I wonder if there will be any retconning now for previous Alakazam cards, or just those will stay basic and future ones will now actually need to evolve from Kadabra. The other news involves the Digimon card game, and unfortunately it's not as positive. Recently in Japan, there was a new set, a reprint set titled Rising Wind. This set included 36 new cards, but most of the rest were reprint cards. This is something that I thought was really great and was really excited to see come over here in English, which is the version I collect. However, they just announced that the English version will include none of the reprint cards. So instead of having a little about, I think, 140 cards per in the full set, this will only have 36. So just the new cards. This is very disappointing for me personally, and from most of the people I've seen on the subreddit, pretty mad about it. I know I heard that in Japan, apparently the pull rates were pretty low for the new cards, but just having the new cards in the packs is to me, like almost like such an extreme swing. It's the worst of both worlds. If anything, I hope they learn. I think that this is not a malicious thing. I hope they learn from this, because I think reprint sets are really good. It's a great way to get people, like, if you haven't starting a reprint set, it keeps cards at a good value for people to collect them, but you make them slightly different, so it's still that version from the first printing is still unique and will retain some value. Hopefully this is just a bit of a mix up, or at least misunderstanding, and in future reprint sets, they'll make sure they're actually reprint the reprints here in America. All right, let's talk Dungeons and Dragons. Last week and the weeks before, I was talking about how they kept trying to change the OGL, the licensing, allowing you to use their system rules, etc. Well, last week I talked about how they're going to put their basic rules into the public licensing so anyone can use it. And we've just learned that they basically said, we're not changing the OGL anymore. Too many people hate it. It's causing too many problems. We're going to make everything public and keep everything the same. This is a pretty big win for the customer base. The fans actually won here. But I'd say the two major points, one does go to the fan. Actually, both go to the fans. One of them is what a lot of people know, and that is just simply ending their D&D Beyond subscriptions. The previous 1.2 I mentioned seemed to really focus on trying to get people to have to use D&D Beyond. Well, if everyone's unsubscribing from it, then there's no point. Even if you have all the toys, if no one's willing to go there to play with them, then they're still worthless. The other big thing, though, is recently we learned that Pathfinder has sold crazy. They have sold in the last few weeks what they have sold for months. I've seen the report saying they can't get more Pathfinder books until April, core rule books. It's just, at Wizards must have seen that, like, we literally just gave our competitor months, even maybe a year's worth of sales in this time to catch up to us. So that is that. I mean, I can only imagine that kind of horror in other companies. And when you give your competitors such a great lead, you got to sort of just, no, we're going to do whatever the fans say so we can keep them to stay with our system. Because when it comes to something, especially RPGs, but you can think of plenty of things, whether it comes to Apple versus Microsoft, Sony, Xbox, Nintendo, whatever rules or system people are used to, they're going to want to stick with those. So if you got to stop the bleeding right away, make it as nice as possible before everyone jumps at the Pathfinder. Now, whether we're going to see everyone migrate to D&D and whether we're going to turn to that status quo, we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, everyone just bought a ton of Pathfinder, and odds are people are going to want to use those Pathfinder books they just bought. It is definitely going to be a very interesting development, including with the Mighty Nine show, whether we're still going to see the biggest role-playing shows stick with D&D or whether we're going to start seeing more Pathfinder from them. Either way, regardless, this is a big win to all of you out there who did the survey, who constantly talked about it. You made sure that D&D is going to stay accessible and not free, but maybe not as terrifying and likely that you're going to have to deal with Wizards of the Coast lawyers. That all said, we'll have to see what the future holds for Hasbro, because there was some bad news involving layoffs of workers. And of course, like I said, I'm still worried about the movies coming out. If they don't do well, the question is, though I heard something, whether Hasbro is actually in a bad spot or just returning to the norm before the pandemic because they were selling a lot of games, role-playing books, and etc. But just like D&D, we'll have to wait and see. I talked about a bad Kickstarter earlier in the news. Hopefully these crowdfunding picks will be ones worthy of your time and money, so let's get down to it. Our first one is Andromeda's Edge. This is a 4X game with some very beautiful minis. As you are expanding on the Andromeda's Edge, you will play as different factions, each with different kinds of vessels, be it ones for transporting, fighting, science, or just the big guns. And you'll be exploring the board, clicking these very beautiful minis together, each of them with different purposes. This is definitely, I feel, that crossover of I want cool big miniature game and also 4X style sci-fi gameplay. So this definitely has a lot of fun stuff going for it. These are from the same people who did Flamecraft, so I'm definitely interested. That said, the all-in is $189, which is definitely worrisome for me. I gotta get all the stuff. But if you are not like me and able to just focus on just the base game, they have a standard edition for $69. You want to know more? Head on down to GameFound and check it out. Next up, we have 10 Tricks. This is pretty much a cyberized competitive version of Tetris. You'll be getting different pieces, sliding them down, but instead of using and clearing lines, when you complete a line, you actually move that barrier line, that one that would cause you a game over, up. However, there are other cards that may actually lower it again. And of course, that allows you to find a way to mess with other people. There's also going to be special abilities slotted along the way that you can unlock depending on how you land your blocks, be it ways to mess with your opponent or move things on your own board to give you a better advantage. This looks like a fun twist on the Tetris gameplay style that allows you to play on the tabletop in still a competitive style. I think that moving the bar up instead of just removing lines is very clever. If you want to know more and maybe even check this out, you can head on to Kickstarter where you can buy a copy of this game for $37. Finally, this is one of those auxiliary items that really is just up to you if you need it for your collection, but I thought it was cool. These are wooden dice towers. They're designed to look like books, so you can slide them into your shelf. But when it's time for you to game, you can slide them off, open them up where you can have all your dice, characters stored, flip up a little thing, and have a dice tower as well. This seems like a really nice piece to have if you like a lot of role-playing games, especially if you feel free from the current fears of what was going to happen with Dungeons and Dragons. So this could be a really nice book for yourself, or maybe a gift for that role player in your life. Now, there are many pledge levels, but mostly they are broken down to, first off, the kind of style you want to be a Dragon Cthulhu Skull. So a bit more of whatever fits the kind of role-playing games you want to play. And then there is whether you want the little deck box included or not, maybe for spell cards or something else. Without the deck box, you can get it for $75. If you want the deck box, it will be $85. But with new projects, we also got to talk about ones that are ending. We've got an interesting double pair, one of them both culting, Lovecraftian related, the other two superhero. So first up, let's talk about the superheroes. One of them was one I talked about last week, and that's Marvel United Multiverse. So if you need to get your Marvel's United heroes and your big Galactus, you're running out of time, so quickly go and take a look at that. Then on GameFound, there is a dungeon crawler for Batman, Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum, where you are actually playing as the villains, trying to escape and maybe even defeat Batman before it's too late. Then on the Cthulhu side of things, we've got Roll for the Great Old Ones, a fun little roll and write game. And then we also got a bit of a traitor or hidden roll game with Among Cultists. So that should fit whether you're shorter, fun roll and write, or you're longer, hidden roll style gameplay, or if you want to work together as superheroes or play the villains. Make sure you take a look at these as they're ending soon if any of them sound interesting to you. But for now, that's all the news we have. Let me know what your thoughts on any of these are. Are you happy with everything that's been happening with Dungeons and Dragons? Are you excited for Kadabra to make his return into Pokemon? Let me know in those comments right down below. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from all of you, but thank you for making it this far. Of course, you can do the usual, the like, the share, the subscribe. It's what YouTube likes. And of course, thank you to everyone on Patreon, all my rollers. You are all fantastic. But for now, I'm Will, and this has been the Board Game News.